my 20s, I learnt one of the simplest and most powerful ideas that I've ever come across: compound interest. Not because I was a financial genius, and certainly not because I was wealthy or had a lot of money. You see, I read a book and then I went to a couple of those property and investment seminars that really simply broke down for me and explained that small, consistent investments made over a long period of time can eventually become something much greater than you could ever imagine when you were back at the beginning. And so at 23, I purchased my first home. And I purchased this off a real estate agent named Scott. Hey, shout out to you, Scott. It was absolutely nothing fancy. It was a small 3-bedroom weatherboard home, but it was on a great block of land, about 800 meters squared, and it was mine. And it was the beginning of my investment journey. I invested in a great suburb, and a few years later, after working 3 jobs to keep paying off that loan because it really concerned me, I then purchased a second house. And after the first sale, Scott did something that I have never forgotten. He sent me this tiny little fridge magnet that was a painting that he'd had an artist or someone do of the house that I'd bought. Now, it was a tiny little magnet, it was a small gesture, but it communicated something much bigger, that it wasn't simply just a transaction to him. And I kept that magnet for a good 10 years on my fridge. So it showed you how much the gesture had meant to me. We stayed in touch over the years because I really got interested in property and I was always on the scout looking around at what was about, what else was in the market, what other opportunities. And I kept paying down my debt and I kept saving and investing. Then, more than 20 years later, it was time for my parents to downsize and to move into a retirement village. And Scott was, of course, the person that I trusted to do it. The relationship over time and through our connection had compounded. His one thoughtful gesture and his manner and way that he sold that house to me became 2 decades of trust and connection. Today, I continue to invest financially. I still invest in property and I look for lower to mid-income housing that suits just everyday Australians and people that struggle to get into the rental market. So I continue to do that. I also invest in some shares and I also love precious metals. But I also invest in something else: the compound interest of trees. On the land that I am fortunate enough to live, I am regenerating an actual forest. I plant a tree every day. I'm well over 1,000 trees now, and I'm looking to restore the habitat and to create a bird sanctuary, a place where birds can come to, where there is many foods and things for a variety of species. I provide shelter as well for wildlife, and I'm seeing the soil get richer through all of the plantings that I'm doing. And whilst I may not personally get to see the return on investment, because a lot of the trees that I've planted are still only this big, they're going to grow big, but it might be that they don't get that big until I'm well and truly gone from the planet. But this is how I also think about leadership. Many leaders might understand compound interest when it comes to money, but they might forget to apply that when it comes to people, their employees, and the community that they live and work and play in. Sure, managers and leaders want accountability and trust, and they want capable workforce and a strong culture. But coaching conversations or catch-ups are often cancelled, one-on-ones disappear, succession planning gets neglected when we're overwhelmed with the busyness, and people development can often get pushed into the next quarter. When budgets are tight, training and development are often the things that are first to go. But culture doesn't just grow through a little investment now and then. It's exactly the same as that first house, that first property that I bought, and the relationship that I had with Scott. It compounds over time. Every honest conversation is a deposit. Every moment of encouragement to your employees is another deposit. Over time, you see trust compound, capability, leadership, and the further development of the people who are coming up through the ranks. And this is what I call steward eldership. Steward elders think in decades, not just itty-bitty quarters. They understand that leadership is not just extracting from people and taking their strengths and their good juice out of them, not just extracting from the organization as a whole, and certainly not extracting from the environment. Steward elders understand that they need to invest in those things, because when we invest in not only people, but we invest in culture and the environment and the future, we start to see the impact of that compound. Because when you invest in an employee, you're actually investing in their confidence, you're investing in their family, and you're investing in their future, the contribution that they can go on and maybe one day make to someone else. And so just like that little magnet that Scott sent me after I purchased my first home, you may not realize the significance of any of the little small actions that you make as a leader until one day, maybe 20 years later, you'll look around and realize that everything valuable grew because you kept showing up, you kept caring, and you kept investing long before anyone would ever see the return. That's the compound interest of steward eldership.